Captain Do-hyun Park stood in front of the large window in his quarters, looking at the stars. His ship, the UES Breakthrough, floated quietly in Earth's orbit. Many people called it ugly. Some even called it the worst ship humans had ever built. But Do-hyun knew better. He placed his hand on the cold window and smiled. This ship was different, special in its own way. A soft beep from his computer interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, the United Earth Defense Council meeting starts in 30 minutes. The ship's computer reminded him. "Thank you," Do-hyun said. He straightened his dark blue uniform and checked his reflection. At 45 years old, his black hair showed a few gray streaks, but his eyes still held the same excitement they had when he first joined the Space Force. The walk to the transport room was quick. Chief Engineer Hae-Yun Lee waited for him there. She wore her usual work uniform, with various tools stuffed in the pockets. Her long black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. "Ready for another fun meeting, Captain?" Hae-Yun asked with a small smile. They both knew what was coming. "As ready as I'll ever be," Do-hyun replied. "Let's go show them what humans can do." The transport beam took them down to the council building in New Singapore. The massive structure of glass and steel stretched into the sky. Inside, representatives from all over Earth gathered to discuss humanity's place among the stars. Admiral Ki-ta-Yang met them at the entrance. The old admiral had been Do-hyun's teacher and friend for 20 years. His presence made Do-hyun feel more confident. "They're all waiting inside," Kita said, "including our guests from the Stellar Confederation." Do-hyun nodded. The Stellar Confederation, a group of advanced alien species who had found Earth 10 years ago. They thought they knew everything about space travel. They were about to learn differently. The main meeting room was huge, with rows of seats rising up like in a theater. Humans sat on one side, aliens on the other. The aliens looked very different from each other. Some had blue skin, others had 4 arms, and some looked like walking crystals. But they all had one thing in common. They thought humans were primitive. At the front of the room stood High Inspector Raven, a tall alien with silver skin and glowing purple eyes. He represented the Luminary, the most advanced species in the Confederation. When Do-hyun walked in, Raven's expression showed what looked like a smile, but not a friendly one. "Ah, Captain Park," Raven said in his musical voice. "We were just discussing your interesting vessel." On the large screen behind Raven, there was a picture of the Breakthrough. Do-hyun heard some aliens laugh. Yes, his ship looked strange. It wasn't smooth and beautiful like alien ships. The Breakthrough had a boxy shape, with odd bumps and patterns on its hull. Thick support beams crossed its surface, making it look like an old Earth container ship in space. The UES Breakthrough represents the newest advancement in human space travel technology, Do-hyun said clearly. He stood straight and proud. Raven waved his hand. "Captain, please. Your ship uses a quantum displacement drive that is." He paused, looking for a word. "Crude. Your power systems are inefficient. The hull design breaks every rule of proper space engineering. It is frankly an embarrassment." Some of the aliens nodded. Even a few humans looked uncomfortable. But Hae-Yun stepped forward. "With respect, High Inspector," she said, "sometimes breaking the rules leads to new discoveries. Our quantum displacement drive works differently from yours because we approach the problem differently." "Yes," Raven said, "like children playing with blocks while we build quantum computers." More aliens laughed. Admiral Kita stood up from his seat. "The Breakthrough has passed all our safety tests. Its unusual design serves a purpose." "A purpose?" Raven asked. "Besides showing the galaxy how far behind humans are." Do-hyun felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. "We request permission to continue our testing program. The Breakthrough's drive system shows promise." "Promise?" Raven interrupted. He turned to the other aliens. "They think this pile of metal shows promise. Next, they'll tell us their stone tools are advanced technology." The alien side of the room filled with laughter. Du-hyun saw Hae-yun's hands ball into fists. Even Admiral Kita's face turned red. But before anyone could speak, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed. A voice came over the speakers. Emergency alert. Spatial distortion detected near Luna Colony. All ships in the area, please respond. The room erupted in activity. Both humans and aliens rushed to their computers and communication devices. Du-hyun looked at Hae-yun, then at Admiral Kita. They all knew what this meant. The breakthrough is the closest ship to Luna Colony, Du-hyun said loudly. Everyone turned to look at him. Raven laughed again, but this time it sounded nervous. Surely you don't mean to respond with that thing. Our ships will handle this. Admiral Kita checked his tablet. The nearest Confederation ship is 2 hours away. The breakthrough can reach Luna Colony in 20 minutes. This is our chance. Hae-yun whispered to Du-hyun. The drive system was made for situations like this. Do-hyun turned to the council. The UES breakthrough requests permission to respond to the emergency. The room got very quiet. Council members looked at each other. Even Raven stopped smiling. Finally, the council president stood up. Permission granted, Captain Park. But be careful. Luna Colony has 10,000 people on it. I know, Du-hyun said. He looked at Raven. Sometimes, High Inspector, the simplest tools are exactly what you need. Do-hyun and Hae-yun hurried to the transport room. As they disappeared in the transport beam, Du-hyun saw Raven watching them. The alien's purple eyes were narrow, but Du-hyun thought he saw something new in them. Was it worry, or maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of doubt about whether humans were as primitive as he thought? The breakthrough waited for them in orbit, ready to show the galaxy what humanity's worst ship could really do. The breakthrough moved quickly through space toward Luna Colony. In the engine room, Hae-yun worked at her control panel, her fingers moving fast over the glowing screens. Sweat ran down her face as she watched the numbers change. Power levels holding steady, she said into her communicator. The quantum displacement drive is working exactly as we planned, Captain. Good. Captain Du-hyun's voice came back. How's the hull stress? Hae-yun looked at another screen. The ship's strange outer shell, with all its odd patterns and thick support beams, was doing its job. Hull integrity at 98%. Those ugly reinforcements are working perfectly. Next to her, Ji-ho Kim watched his own screens carefully. The young physicist had helped Hae-yun design the ship's unusual drive system. Now he pointed to something interesting on his display. Hae-yun, look at these readings, he said quietly. The space around us. It's not just moving. It's changing. Hae-yun moved to his station. The numbers on his screen told an amazing story. Their quantum displacement drive didn't just push the ship through space like normal engines. Instead, it seemed to fold space itself, like making a paper boat in a stream to move faster. This is why the aliens don't understand our ship, Hae-yun said. They try to cut through space. We learn to work with it instead. The ship's computer beeped. Incoming message from Luna Colony, it announced. Captain Du-hyun's voice came over the speakers. All hands, prepare for emergency operations. The spatial distortion is growing. Luna Colony reports their shields are failing. Hae-yun grabbed her tool belt and tablet. Ji-ho, keep watching those space readings. I need to check the drive core. She walked quickly through the engine room's lower level. The quantum displacement drive filled the center of the room. It looked simple, just a large metal sphere with rings spinning around it. The aliens had laughed at this too. Their drives were small and elegant. But Hae-yun knew bigger wasn't always worse. As she checked the drive's power connections, she remembered how she got the idea for it. 10 years ago, she had watched her daughter Mireille playing with soap bubbles in their backyard. Mireille had discovered that she could move the bubbles by blowing air around them, not at them. That's when Hae-yun realized. Maybe they were thinking about space travel all wrong. Drive core temperature rising, Jai-ho reported from above, but still within safe limits. Hae-yun nodded. The drive was working harder than ever before. Through a nearby window, she could see the stars changing position faster than any normal ship could manage. The breakthrough wasn't the fastest ship humans had built, but it could do things other ships couldn't. Suddenly, the whole ship shook. Hae-yun grabbed a railing to stay standing. Status report. Captain Do-hyun called over the speakers. "We've hit the edge of the spatial distortion," Jai-ho answered. It's bigger than we thought." Hae-yun rushed back to her control panel. The readings were incredible. The distortion wasn't just bending space, it was tearing it. Normal ships would be ripped apart trying to get through it. But the breakthrough. "Captain," she said, "our hull design, it's perfect for this. The patterns we built into it match the distortion's energy waves. We can ride them like a surfer rides ocean waves." There was a pause. Hae-yun knew what Do-hyun was thinking. This was exactly what they had built the ship for, but they had never tested it in a real emergency. "Do it," Do-hyun ordered. "Get us to that colony." Hae-yun's hands flew over her controls. She adjusted power levels, changed the drive's pin speed, and watched as the hull's strange patterns began to glow slightly. "Jai-ho," she called, "help me match our quantum field to the distortion frequency." Together, they fine-tuned the ship's systems. The breakthrough stopped fighting against the spatial distortion and started working with it. Through the windows, space itself seemed to bend and flow around them. "Message from Luna Colony," the computer announced. "Their main power grid is down. Life support failing. Estimated 17 minutes of air remaining." Hae-yun felt her heart beat faster. She thought of her daughter Mireille, safe back on Earth. There were children on Luna Colony too. She wouldn't let them down. "Captain," she said, "I'm going to try something new. The quantum displacement drive. I think we can use it to calm the distortion itself." "That's not what the drive was designed for," Jai-ho warned. "No," Hae-yun agreed. "But sometimes the best tools can do more than what they were made for." "Captain." "Do it," Do-hyun said again. He trusted her. Hae-yun reversed the drive's power flow. Instead of using the distortion to move the ship, they would use the ship to affect the distortion. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of thing humans were good at. The ship groaned. Lights flickered. Through the windows, the twisted space around them started to smooth out. The breakthrough's primitive design was actually helping to heal the torn fabric of space. "Luna Colony reports the distortion is weakening," Captain Do-hyun announced. "Their shields are starting to recover." Hae-yun smiled. She looked at Jai-ho, who was shaking his head in amazement. "The aliens thought our ship was ugly," he said. "They didn't understand that every weird pattern, every strange design choice, was put there for a reason." Hae-yun finished. "We didn't build our ship to look pretty. We built it to do what needed to be done." Through the clearing space ahead, Luna Colony became visible. Its dome gleamed in the sunlight. They had made it in time. But Hae-yun knew this was just the beginning. The readings from their quantum displacement drive showed something even more amazing. Something that would change everything humans thought they knew about space travel. She couldn't wait to see High Inspector Raven's face when he learned what humanity's worst ship had really discovered. 3 days after saving Luna Colony, the UES Breakthrough sat in Earth's orbit for repairs. Hae-yun Lee stood in the ship's main conference room, explaining her findings to Captain Do-hyun and the others. The wall screen showed complicated patterns of space distortion. "The quantum displacement drive didn't just move us through the distortion," she said. "It changed the distortion itself. We didn't just ride the waves of space. We calmed them." Tae-won Choi, the ship's navigation specialist, leaned forward in his chair, like throwing oil on rough water to make it smooth. "Exactly," Hae-yun smiled. "The aliens think space is something to fight against. We found a way to work with it instead." The ship's doctor, Sun Haikang, raised her hand. Could this help sick people? The smoother space might make transport safer for patients. Before Hei-yun could answer, the room's door slid open. High Inspector Raven walked in, his silver skin shining under the lights. Two other luminary followed him. Interesting theories, Raven said. His purple eyes looked at the screens. But they go against everything we know about space travel. Maybe that's why they work, Captain Do-hyun said quietly. Raven turned to face him. The Confederation has studied space travel for 10,000 years. Your species only reached your own moon 60 years ago. And look how far we've come, Do-hyun answered. Suddenly, all the screens turned red. Warning signals flashed. The ship's computer spoke. Emergency transmission from the luminary colony on Proxima B. Raven's face changed. The luminary colony was his people's newest settlement, close to Earth's solar system. The computer played the message. This is Colony Administrator Bowman. A massive spatial anomaly has appeared near our main city. Our shields cannot stop it. The colony has 20,000 people. We need immediate help. Everyone watched as data from the colony appeared on the screens. The spatial anomaly was huge, much bigger than the one at Luna Colony. It twisted space like a giant whirlpool, growing larger every minute. Raven spoke quickly into his communicator in the musical luminary language. After a moment, his shoulders dropped. Our ships cannot approach, he said. The anomaly is too strong. It will tear apart any ship that gets close. He looked at the humans. Even your unusual vessel would be destroyed. Hei-yun studied the readings. Maybe not, she said. Captain, remember what Jai-ho discovered? Our hull patterns don't just protect us. They can change how space moves around us. It's too dangerous, Raven said. The anomaly is nothing like the distortion at Luna Colony. It's 100 times stronger. Then we'll be 100 times better, Do-hyun said. He stood up. Hei-yun, can you modify the quantum displacement drive? Make it work with an anomaly this big. Hei-yun thought about it. The drive would need more power. The hull patterns would need adjustment. It might work, or it might tear the ship apart. She thought about the 20,000 people in the colony. Yes, she said. I can do it, but Inspector Raven is right. It will be dangerous. Raven stepped forward. Captain Park, you cannot risk your ship and crew. The Confederation. The Confederation's ships can't get close, Do-hyun interrupted. Ours can. You called our ship primitive. You laughed at our designs. But sometimes the simplest tools are the best ones for the job. The captain turned to his crew. This is volunteer only. The mission could kill us all. Anyone who wants to stay behind. I'm going, Hei-yun said immediately. Me too, said Todwan. You'll need a doctor, son, he added. One by one, every crew member agreed to go. Raven watched them, his purple eyes wide. You would risk everything, he asked. For a colony that isn't even human. That's what humans do, Do-hyun said. We help people who need help. Hei-yun, how long to modify the drive? 2 hours, she said. Less if Jai-ho helps. You have 1 hour, Do-hyun said. Everyone else, prepare for emergency operations. Dr. Kang, get sick bay ready. We might have injured colonists to transport. The room emptied quickly. Hei-yun rushed to the engine room, her mind already working on the drive modifications. As she left, she heard Raven talking to Captain Do-hyun. Your crew is either very brave or very foolish, the luminary said. Sometimes they're both, Do-hyun answered. That's what makes humans special. In the engine room, Hei-yun and Jai-ho worked faster than they ever had before. They rerouted power systems, adjusted the quantum field generators, and strengthened the hull's energy patterns. Other crew members helped, bringing tools and making adjustments. Through the windows, Earth looked peaceful and blue. Hei-yun thought of her daughter Mireille again. The little girl who had inspired the quantum displacement drive with her soap bubbles would be watching the news tonight. She would see her mother's ugly ship trying to save 20,000 lives. Drive modifications complete, Jaiho reported. But He-yun, the power levels we'll need. No one has ever tried anything like this. No one has ever built a ship like this either, He-yun said. She touched the engine room wall gently. The aliens think it's primitive because it looks simple. They don't understand that simple things can be the most powerful. The ship's computer announced, all crew to emergency stations. Quantum displacement drive startup in 5 minutes. He-yun took her place at the main engineering console. Around her, warning lights flashed as the drive powered up. The hull's pattern began to glow brighter than ever before. Ready for quantum displacement, she reported to the bridge. Take us out, Captain Do-hyun ordered. The breakthrough turned away from Earth and started its journey to Proxima b. He-yun watched her readouts carefully. Everything looked good, but the real test was still to come. They were about to find out if humanity's worst ship could save an alien colony by doing something no other ship in the galaxy could do: break the rules of space itself. The UES breakthrough dropped out of quantum displacement near Proxima b. The view through the bridge windows made everyone gasp. The spatial anomaly looked like a giant tornado made of stars and darkness, spinning wildly above the luminary colony. Status report, Captain Do-hyun ordered, his voice steady despite the amazing sight. Hull integrity at 95%, He-yun reported from engineering. The quantum displacement drive is ready for modified operation. Taiwan checked his navigation screens. The anomaly is pulling everything toward its center. 3 luminary ships are trapped at its edge. They can't move forward or back. Life signs on those ships? Do-hyun asked. All crews alive, Sun-hae answered from her medical station. But they're in trouble. Their ships' hulls are starting to crack. High Inspector Raven stood at the back of the bridge, watching silently. His purple eyes were fixed on the screens showing the trapped ships. Do-hyun knew those were Raven's people out there, facing death. He-yun, Do-hyun called. Start the drive modifications. Taiwan, take us in slowly. Everyone else, emergency stations. The breakthrough moved toward the anomaly. Its hull patterns glowed brighter as they got closer. Through the windows, they could see space itself bending and twisting. First test of the modified drive starting now, He-yun announced. The ship hummed as the quantum displacement drive spun up to full power. Suddenly, the ship shook hard. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Hull stress increasing. Jaiho reported. The anomaly is stronger than our calculations showed. Raven stepped forward. Captain Park, you must retreat. Even your unusual ship cannot survive this. My people, we will find another way. Do-hyun looked at him. There is no other way. You know that. He turned to He-yun's image on the screen. He-yun, remember what you said about working with space instead of fighting it? Yes, Captain. Could we do that here? Not try to stop the anomaly, but work with it. He-yun's eyes widened. Like the soap bubbles, she whispered. Then louder, yes. Jaiho, help me reverse the drive's field. Instead of pushing against the anomaly's spin, we'll spin with it. The engineers worked quickly. The ship shook harder as they got closer to the anomaly's edge. On the screen, one of the trapped luminary ship's hull began to break apart. Now, He-yun, Do-hyun ordered. The quantum displacement drive's hum changed to a deep roar. The hull patterns flashed bright blue. Instead of fighting the anomaly's pull, the breakthrough started to move with it, like a leaf caught in a whirlpool. It's working. Taiwan shouted. We're moving through the anomaly's field. Raven stepped closer to the main window, his silver face showing surprise. Impossible, he whispered. The energy levels should tear your ship apart. Look at the hull patterns, He-yun said through the screen. They're not just decoration. Each line, each curve matches the anomaly's energy waves. We're not just surviving the anomaly. We're becoming part of it. The breakthrough spun faster, moving deeper into the anomaly's field. They'd reached the first trapped luminary ship. Extending emergency transport beam, Sunhei reported. Beginning crew evacuation. One by one, they rescued the crews from the trapped ships. The breakthrough's primitive design let them go where no other ship could. Its ugly hull patterns turned the anomaly's deadly energy into something they could use. But they weren't done yet. "Hey Yun," Do-hyun said, "can we do more? Can we stop this anomaly before it reaches the colony?" There was a pause. Then Yun spoke slowly. "The quantum displacement drive. It's not just moving us through space anymore. It's changing space itself. If we go to full power, right at the anomaly center, we might be able to close it," Jai-ho finished. "But Captain, the power surge could destroy the ship." Do-hyun looked at his crew. They all nodded. Then he looked at Raven. "Your people trusted us enough to let us try," Do-hyun said. "Now I'll show you why." Raven stared at him for a long moment. Then he bowed slightly. Perhaps we were wrong about humans." "Hey Yun," Do-hyun ordered, "take us in. Full power to the quantum displacement drive." The breakthrough dove toward the center of the anomaly. The ship's hull glowed brighter and brighter. In engineering, Hey Yun and Ji-ho pushed the drive beyond anything they had ever tried before. Space itself seemed to bend around them. The anomaly's spin got faster and faster. Warning alarms screamed as the ship's systems were pushed to their limits. "Drive reaching critical levels," Ji-ho shouted. "Hull integrity failing," Taiwan reported. "Keep going," Do-hyun ordered. "We're almost there." In the engine room, Yun watched her screens carefully. The quantum displacement drive was doing something amazing. It wasn't just affecting space anymore, it was reshaping it. The drive's primitive design was actually perfect for this impossible task. With a flash that lit up the whole Proxima system, the breakthrough reached the anomaly center. The quantum displacement drive pulsed once, twice, 3 times. The anomaly began to shrink. "It's working," Yun shouted. "The anomaly is collapsing." Everyone watched as the giant space tornado got smaller and smaller. The breakthrough's hull patterns pulsed with energy, guiding the collapse, making sure it happened safely. Finally, with one last flash of light, the anomaly disappeared completely. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then cheers broke out. They had done it. Humanity's worst ship had saved 20,000 lives and done something no other ship in the galaxy could do. Raven stepped forward again. This time, he bowed deeply to Captain Do-hyun. "Captain Park," he said formally, "the Stellar Confederation owes you and your crew a great debt. We were wrong about your ship. We were wrong about humans." Do-hyun smiled. "We're different from you, High Inspector. We solve problems differently, but different doesn't mean worse." "Indeed," Raven agreed. "Your quantum displacement drive, it doesn't just move through space. It works with space in ways we never imagined. And your hull design was inspired by my daughter playing with soap bubbles," Yun said through the screen, making Raven's eyes widen in surprise. As the breakthrough headed back to the luminary colony, Do-hyun looked at his crew with pride. They had proved that humanity's way of doing things, looking at old problems in new ways, finding simple solutions to complex problems, was just as valuable as any advanced alien technology. Sometimes, he thought, the best ship isn't the prettiest or the most advanced. Sometimes, the best ship is the one that gets the job done, no matter what anyone else thinks of it. The UES breakthrough had lived up to its name. It hadn't just broken through space, it had broken through the galaxy's assumptions about what humans could do. And this was just the beginning.